We are answering this question before us. It's asking us to solve cos of x is equal to a half for x is an element of 0 to 2 pi. So how are we going to approach this? Well, a good first step is just thinking about your special triangle for a second. So this is the square root of 3 to 1. Now we're going to ask ourselves, all right, cos of what angle is equal to, just ignore the sign for now, just ignore it. Don't even look at it, just think of a half. So cos of what angle would be equal to a half? Well, I know that cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be here, right? That has to be the angle that I'm dealing with, because then I've got adjacent and hypotenuse there, and I know that this angle is pi on 3. So notice that I ignored the sign in front of it in order to do this, because I just need to deal with a half. So that means that my reference angle, that is the angle in my first quadrant, is pi on 3. Now, that isn't necessarily one of my answers. What we now need to do is consider where this exists in my unit circle. So some of us will be able to do this in our head. Some of us may benefit from just doing a little sketch for ourselves. If I just draw a little unit circle here for myself, and then say, all right, I'm dealing with cos. Cos is my x, and negative a half. That is over here. So that means there are two places on my unit circle where I will get an x value of negative a half. I'm just leaving these as dashes because we don't care about the y. So do you see there are two places on my unit circle where I'm going to get x values of negative a half, and I need to figure out what those are going to be. So what is this angle going to be? And what is, I'll do it in another color just to be fancy, what is this angle going to be? That's what I need to figure out. And this is where your reference angle really comes in handy. As you can see, my reference angle, if I were to draw it in, is actually over here, right? It's the one over here. That's pi on 3. That is a half something. This isn't one of our answers because it's not negative a half. So then you might be asking yourself, well, what's the point of figuring out what this reference angle is going to be if it isn't one of my solutions? But the reason why it's helpful is because now we just need to ask, well, if I have a reference angle of pi on 3 and I'm in the second quadrant, what's it going to be? Well, it's just going to be 2 pi on 3. And the way I remember this is that in my second quadrant, if I am dealing with pi on 3, well, I just know in the second quadrant, my numerator is 1 less than my denominator. And then in my third quadrant, the numerator is 1 more than the denominator. So this will be 4 pi on 3. So I'm using that reference angle, and then I have memorized what they are in certain quadrants, and that's how I'm answering it. So you have to recognize that you exist in the second and third quadrant to get this correct. And just because I'm so pedantic, I don't want to put that in purple. I want to do that in a different color. Let's do it in red. X is equal to 2 pi on 3 and 4 pi on 3. So that's how you think through that problem. Your reference angle isn't necessarily one of your correct answers, so you just need to be aware of that. Perfect. Hopefully you are finding these examples useful.